Hello and welcome to the Ladies Best Life podcast. A bit of a different setup today with these three losers with me. Today we are going to be talking about, what is it?
Health at every size.
Health at every size. And I think this will probably go off on some tangents. So just so you know, health at every size is a bit of a phase that started probably like 2 to 3 years ago, I think. And it's been doing the kind of cycles around society, and we thought we would talk about it. So guys, what do we think of health at every size?
Go on, kick us off, Maura.
So I think health at every size is a fantastic way to create a space where we're not marginalizing people in smaller bodies or bigger bodies when it comes to, let's say, like accessibility of healthcare, accessibility for, just let's say jobs. Some people can be disrespected or discriminated against because of size when it comes to work. However, when it then comes into like, can we truly be healthy at every size? That's, I think, when the question has to come into play. And is there a difference between not being a dick and not being discriminative? I don't know if you swear in this podcast.
Yes, I do. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Come on, it's me.
So there's a difference between not being a dick and discriminating against someone because of what particular body or body shape they might be in versus where is your health actually at?
AJ?
Yeah, so working off that, I'd say obviously there's so many different elements of health. So we've got to take that into consideration. But furthermore, you mentioned that obviously it comes to a point where a size starts to affect your health. So let's elaborate on that a little bit.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the first one. So let's say obviously someone who has that much mass, someone come out from a joint pain angle. So those that are experiencing joint pain, if you have that much mass, of course, it can cause more joint pain, but what it can also cause is respiratory issues due to then that amount of mass putting so much pressure on your rib cage. So there's two angles there, joints and respiratory system. It's going to affect.
Yeah. Yeah. What have you got to put onto?
Can you, I'll come in for a side tangent. Can you feel healthy and be happy, but what you spoke about there potentially isn't quite optimum health?
Yeah, exactly. So you can't have optimal health, right? Let's just look at it from a very foundation point of view. One of the fundamentals for health is sleep. If someone is overweight, more times than not, they have issues sleeping. And this is actually a root cause for sleep apnea.
Yeah.
So straight away, obviously, if we start to reduce the weight, this can then improve our sleep, which is then going to improve your health.
So just before we go any further, what about the other end of the scale?
So I absolutely agree with the opposite end of the scale equally being true, in that you cannot necessarily occupy a smaller body or occupy a smaller space and still classify yourself as healthy. I think we discussed it the other day that somebody living off of caffeine, sugar in the hopes of the universe definitely doesn't have their shit together when it comes to then looking after their bodies.
I've got a really cool one, because obviously this is a ladies only podcast, is it? Mostly ladies that listen?
Yeah, men do listen, but it is
cool. This will be cool for men as well. So if we take like a bikini competitor, for example, here, let's be honest, like everyone can hold their hands up for this. How many females have lost their menstrual cycle due to trying to chase a physique, which has resulted in obviously that menstrual cycle loss due to a lower end of body fat, which is not healthy, and your body is screaming out at you and telling you that by losing the menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Would that be similar with a man losing his testosterone?
Yeah, so males can go to a lower body fat percentage, but still you run the risk if you go so low, because what it can also show, right, is a sign of malnourishment, because we associate that with a calorie deficit. Yeah.
This is exactly what I was discussing with my ladies the other day, was thinking that when we are dieting, or like, for example, ladies even who diet chronically and are always seemingly never off of a diet, is like when you're in a calorie deficit, by definition, you're taking in less energy or less food than your body requires to sustain itself. So if we actually think about that in the context of, well, yes, we can still make great choices when it comes to food, but are we then actually getting the same quantity of micronutrients, vitamins, and all those other things?
And one of the biggest root causes for hormonal imbalance is nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah. So can we actually then say that we're getting in enough of those like little goodies to make sure that all of our other internal processes are working as well as they could do? And this is then also, I think, another question as well, like Carl, you mentioned it, is optimal health. And it's like, what is optimal health? What is health? Like, this is a huge question. Like, I don't know if you remember doing like your PT course and things like that, but it's like, what is health? health is the absence of disease
Yeah.
and dysfunction. Are we really setting the bar that low? Like, you're not diseased, you're not dysfunctioned in the eyes of conventional medicine.
Another tangent. Are we just normalizing what normal is now? Like, people are walking around at 40 to 50% of what their true optimal is, or what their normal actually is. So have we just become a society now that is accepting of, oh, well, 1 in 2 have a chronic disease. If you're not, then you're absolutely fine, despite getting loads of other symptoms.
So what you're saying is, are we normalizing a below par state?
Massively.
Absolutely.
If we
Look at the NHS.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Look at the conventional ranges versus the optimal ranges. If you're not coming up as a disease, which they're classing as super serious, obviously, then everything's fine. Despite you feeling like shit, despite you obviously feeling like you can get more optimal, they're telling you that everything is fine, because you're within the ranges that are based off where like 80% are nutrient deficient, 70% are obese, and 50% of people have a chronic disease.
Fucking mad, like when you look at the stats like that. And just to explain to everyone, because I realized I didn't, like, so I work with both of you guys on my health, and I got to the point where I was like, and Carl does as well, to be fair, I was like, I felt okay, but I didn't feel that good. And I was like, surely I can feel better. And then obviously met you guys and started to work together a little bit. And I was like, wow, like now by delving into things a little bit further, we can really start to see that. And that's what you guys obviously do. And if you want to tell everyone more about yourselves, then please do, because my introduction was shit, just calling you all losers. So I think now, who are really not losers, but you are. So I think what we should do before we go any further is say a little bit about what you do. Let's give some credibility and we'll go from there.
Morag? Yes.
So yeah, we didn't even introduce our names. I love this. So thank you for listening thus far. So I'm Morag. I am a female health and wellness coach, and I know that that sounds a little bit fluffy and vague, but what I do is I work with ladies on improving their functional health, but it's health, wellness, escaping diet culture, making sure that we've got fantastic relationships with our bodies, with food, nutrition, and just generally bringing as much health and vitality and energy to the world as we possibly can. And the reason why I do that is, for a lot of my life, I've always known what to do, but then I've always as well been maybe, let's say, this flip-flop yo-yo person. And it really took to working on my own health, my own mental well-being, which I think also plays a massive role in this. And we can tangent down on that later as well. But working on my own mental well-being, diving into functional health and wellness, being able to work with clients and ladies on a deeper level, restoring periods, reducing PCOS symptoms, helping ladies with endo, like all of these sorts of like women's problems that just get really brushed off. Or, you know, the common one, it's like, oh, I've got PMS. I'll just deal with it. It's just a lady's problem.
Just eat chocolate.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, just bang a couple of like, you know.
On that note, it's because your body is more stressed during the menstrual cycle, which then depletes magnesium levels, and chocolate has magnesium in.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, mic drop.
This is it. But no, genuinely, like just like drop a couple of Nurofen and jobs are good. And then I think like the standard and quality of care really needs to come up.
I think that'd be a really cool subject that we can dive in deeper another time, is how your menstrual cycle is your monthly health report card.
Really?
Yeah.
What, because the more you feel like PMT and the kind of, can you, like, would you guys say the worse your cycle is?
You could describe it like that. Like,
I could take in other conditions, what's playing a role, but at the end of the day, it's still to do with your health, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And what do you do?
So I'm AJ, I'm the founder of the Superhuman Health Protocol. And what I do is I look into functional blood work, which is very different, as I was explaining earlier, to conventional. Now, what I do is I look into what's the healthy ranges are. So it's a lot narrower, but what this then does is allows us to help with prevention rather than looking into cure instead. And the reason why I went down this route is because I was having my own gut health issues. I went to the doctors. I wasn't getting any answers. I wasn't getting any solutions, and they couldn't tell me what was up. In the end, they told me I've got Gilbert syndrome, which, by the way, they said that's just a long life condition. I reversed that. Then there are two different types of Gilbert syndrome for everyone to just note on. It's like one you can reverse, one you're just generally genetically born with. And then in regards to my gut health issues, they just diagnosed me with IBS, which, for anyone who doesn't know, is a blanket term. There's a root cause for IBS. This could be leaky gut. This could be due to you having low stomach acid, parasites, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It could be due to candida. It could even be due to heavy metal toxicity. But this is how much depth it goes into. And I just don't feel like the world knows enough of this. So I'm trying to create a lot of awareness around this whilst optimizing everyone's health and performance.
Hello. What about you?
I'm just here for IT support. and to give my sort of 2 pence as somebody who's coming from outside the fitness coaching industry to try and be devil's advocate, I guess.
But you've also worked with AJ specifically for over a year now, is
Yeah, nearly about a year. So
Yep.
it's been quite the journey. And here we are now in Bali. So yeah,
it?
got a bit to bring.
Okay, so now we've done the introduction. Thanks, guys. Now everyone knows
Yeah,
who
really?
people are. I was sat there thinking, oh shit, they don't even know who they are. Okay, so let's carry on, because we've talked about the like the people who are in larger bodies, the people who are in smaller bodies. What about those who the NHS say you're in a healthy range of BMI, which we all know is a load of fucking shit. What about those? Like, this health at every size is saying you can be healthy regardless of your size, but it's basically saying no matter what size you are healthy. No matter what size you are healthy. So that's saying regardless, you're healthy. But actually, we know that weight can, first of all, be a direct indicator of poor health or have repercussions on your health. But it doesn't, like, your size doesn't dictate your health.
I'm obese.
Yeah.
On the BMI, I came back as obese.
Oh yeah. I'm probably knocking on it at the moment too, going through a bit of a gaining phase. And like this is the whole point as well, is to go, do you know what? There are so many different body shapes and sizes, and it's beautiful. Like I was actually saying to you this morning, I'm going to share this with everybody, but literally, like I do like a little check-in with myself every day. Don't know, not everybody has to, but I'll like look in the mirror, and it's kind of like one of the things that I started to do to just kind of like desensitize being sensitive to changes in my body shape and things like that. So it's like I just make it a regular and a normal thing. I'll look in the mirror every single day, and like this morning I was like, damn, I'm happy with my body.
She did. She came downstairs. You could tell me how sexy she was feeling, which is beautiful.
Yeah,
it's nice to hear.
And like I'm not the leanest I've ever been. Like I've been down bikini competitor leanness, and I still thought I was not lean enough to compete.
On
and
that
I wasn't
note
in a
as
good
well,
place.
like, did that cause a mental exhaustion?
100%.
Because this can happen on both ends of the scale. Don't get me wrong, it can happen from your work as well. But when we look into someone being chronically overweight, I'm going to call it, because what is overweight at the end of the day? Let's say chronically overweight where it's actually affecting them, or they can be chronically underweight, and this can cause mental health issues from both ends.
But it's both ends of the scale. And I just want to put in from the perspective of right now occupying a space where, like, you know, I'm actively working to gain mass and to occupy space. So like by societal definition, that's like, you're not working to like get smaller, like what is going on? And like with that comes a lot of triggers and past thoughts. So for example, like, you know, the thought of putting on a little bit of fat mass, I'd be like, shit, no, can't do that. I need to like strip it off. And yeah, I just thought I'd share it that today, like, you know, I'm not the leanest, I'm not the biggest, but I'm certainly knocking on the biggest that I've been in the last couple of years. And like, this is where I think as well, it's important to say that we're not stigmatizing people in different shaped bodies. It's just looking at the fundamentals of what's your energy like? How do you feel? Do you feel like you're looking after and taking care of your body, and that you've got standards of self-care and respect?
Okay, so if you have those 4 things, you're telling me that no matter what their weight, they can be healthy.
Again, it depends then what the behaviors and actions are, I personally think, in the day. And
AJ, you look like you're itching.
Yeah, well, I've already made the point, haven't I, about joints. I've already made the point of respiratory. Also, what I think is, what is that causing to their visceral fat? Okay, so fat around the organs.
But again, this is where I think when we come at it from a perspective of, is somebody moving throughout the week? Now, movement could be resistance training, it could be running, it could be Pilates, it could be anything that...
I'm just going to step in. So what is a byproduct of health?
Energy.
What else? The ability to lose fat, right? You become metabolically fit. So if you're still overweight, despite doing all the fundamentals, then this clearly shows there's an underlying issue somewhere. And I say issue, don't take issue as a negative, because it's a health condition. And at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with a health condition, but that's why looking into blood work can signal this to us. But also you having that ability to connect with yourself and see from the biofeedback that you're doing all these things, but you're struggling to lose weight, there's gonna be an underlying factor.
So the ability for your body to lose body fat is a byproduct of health.
Yes, because what health does is it drives your performance, right? So
Okay.
those that are tired, being exhausted in the morning, they're not going to be able to perform well. If
Right.
you're performing well, then you're moving more, you've got higher energy, you're going to have a higher output, therefore you're going to find it easier to lose fat. Think about people who you can look at, they don't move that much and yet they're in great shape because they're still metabolically fit. They haven't got an underlying factor that's playing a role.
And what are the other reasons? Because obviously when we started work together, we've like ramped my calories up. We've looked at bringing me into the parasympathetic state as much as possible. So why does the body hold, like, is there a thing of it actually holding on to body fat?
So law of thermodynamics, you're never going to outdo calorie deficit. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there plain and simple because everybody goes, oh God, it's my metabolism, it's broken, it's this, that. But metabolic adaptation is a very real thing. Now, I don't know if you're okay with us sharing bits about you. So, okay, so for example, like Sasha has recently come off of hormonal contraception.
Yep.
Hormones are all over the shop.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's great.
Sorry, Carl. We've also seen like a slight downturn in like your thyroid as well in terms of thyroid function. You know, you were doing everything right. You know, you were eating less than your body required to you know, maintain its current state. So by all intents and purposes, and you were exercising frequently throughout the week, you were running, you were doing like spin classes, like all of the things. But what comes up to a point is you get to a point where the body is so tired and fatigued that you end up just like holding loads of like water and you end up like holding lots of inflammation, you're puffy, digestion goes to pot, you end up being like bloated, maybe sometimes like PMS starts increasing. And actually what your body needs to do is your body needs to rest, to drop that inflammation, to drop that stress. And like, that's exactly what you saw. Like, I think it was within the first couple of weeks, you were like, the fuck is happening? Like,
this has all come down to supporting them underlying factors as well.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. So what we did was, this is kind of coming into a bit of an expose on Sasha now, but what we did was we actually brought down steps inadvertently because you were away to Portugal and then, you know, obviously you were kind of then in between things like you weren't doing spin and all those sorts of things. But we took down steps just by a little bit, not by much. You still want to move about. Like, don't anybody listening to this think, haha, yes, I'm going to
don't need to get my
So
steps.
just to clarify, are you eating more now
Yeah.
and losing more?
Yes.
Because there's now that support on the thyroid.
Yes, I agree. So,
and this is why I don't agree with the whole agenda of you need to be in a calorie deficit, because what is a calorie deficit in terms of, yes, we know it in terms of what the definition is, but how do we truly know someone's calorie deficit? You can't go online and look at a calculator. That's absolute bullshit.
No.
Because it doesn't tell you about the individual. And that's obviously something we work with so closely, is understanding where the individual is at, which is why we do the blood work, because the blood work doesn't lie. So therefore we take away obviously that guesswork and we see what's going on a physiological factor. But that's where a coach is needed, because we also need to obviously consider the psychological factor as well, because they have a bilateral relationship. But this is it, in terms of the calorie deficit, we're not going to know unless we know what's going on inside of the body. So that's why people can eat 800 calories and not lose weight, because there's an underlying factor going on.
So we're essentially saying there that you almost need to work on the actual infrastructure inside of you before you actually go on your, let's say, health journey. Now, I'd probably relate that to myself in that before joining yourself was I felt as though I ate quite healthily, but in fact, I probably wasn't, I think the key word is absorbing. So I wasn't absorbing the nutrients correctly. So by working on that infrastructure inside, now I'm starting to reap those benefits a year on and going forwards. It's almost a level of, if I was shit here and thought I was doing okay, imagine what I'm like when I'm going to be at that optimal level.
Cole just made a key point as well, by the way, everyone's saying I ate healthy.
Yeah.
And he put that in the comments because, again, what is healthy? One man's food is another man's poison, right?
Yeah.
This is why we look into the blood work, because then we can find out what micronutrients you're actually deficient in. We're also going to see what micronutrients you're going to need more of. For example, with Sasha having an underactive thyroid, we know that there's going to be more need of selenium. So by supporting you with more selenium, your thyroid is going to function better. Therefore, metabolically, you're going to function better. Therefore, you can actually increase your calories. You can obviously decrease your steps if you wanted to then obviously get into that parasympathetic state. Bob's your uncle, let's call that.
So it's not that my body was holding on to fat, it's just that it was inflamed, so it was holding on to water. And what do you think, if we're looking at, like, say, UK the women that I work with in particular, they're modern day women, so high pressure career, 2 kids at home generally, like, so they're probably going to be under quite a lot of pressure, right? So you would say that they potentially need to look at their kind of managing their emotional state, bringing the stress down, then the body would reduce inflammation, then they'll be able to look at other.
Like,
I think we have to address them both at the same time.
I think we have to address both at the same time, but I think the thing that we need to also kind of like bring into perspective is a lot of us make out that fat loss has to be harder than it is. And I know that that is a really, really inflammatory statement. And it's going to be like, what the fuck? What do you mean?
I've been trying for years.
I've been trying for years. And like, this is then maybe that's the key lesson. Like, do you know, in life, you get presented the same thing over and over again until you learn the lesson. And it's like, if you were trying to go hard all the time and it's still not working, is that then the right thing for you to be doing? And my argument would be no. So I've got to jump in on AJ sometimes. And this is exactly where, like, I'm going to use you as an example, Sasha. We brought down your physical output or stress load dramatically. I halved your volume with your training. We took you into movements that actually got you moving well, breathing well, and you were able to actually like transfer like nutrients and things like that in your body a lot more effectively and efficiently. So actually we've maybe, I'm not going to say like halved what you do, but essentially like it is, you know, we've halved what you do. We've gotten you moving better and your body's responding because it's gone, oh, okay.
That's also the key thing, like where people associate having more protein, obviously going to suppress your appetite, let's say, so have more protein, that's going to help with fat loss. But in actual fact, let's say with like Colin and Sasha's situation, they both had low stomach acid. So therefore, having more protein wasn't the answer because you weren't digesting protein effectively anyway. So actually, we had to support your stomach acid for you to be able to have the ability to absorb and assimilate the nutrients from the protein.
Yeah.
See, like, at what point is information like that going to become available for every kind of average stage Joe?
Just need to get us on every podcast.
I think it's slowly turning. The tide is slowly turning, but I think a lot of it still gets deemed as woo-woo. So it's like, I agree, lemon water in the morning is going to do fuck all for actually burning fat. But for helping your stomach acid, like a bit of ACV could actually be really helpful, provided you don't have like H. pylori or anything else like that. Like if anybody gets a burning sensation when they have ACV, not the right thing for you. Yeah,
I think it's giving more nuance to everything. Like some people are so quick to just shut it down. I say like James Smith absolutely ripping into the lemon and water.
Oh, okay, right.
But does he have the understanding of what it's actually providing? Does he understand that over 90% of blood work we see, people are coming up as dehydrated? That lemon is going to add some potassium, it's going to add some vitamin C. Therefore, obviously, with the nutrient deficiencies, but also in terms of the electrolytes replenishing that's going to help. In regards to them being low in sodium, by adding the salt, that's going to help with their sodium levels. Where is Joe Smith looking at blood work on that? Or is he just saying it
no,
to be controversial?
And this is where I'm going to jump in quickly before I forget this point. Is this where diet culture has taken these little things that can help support our health and it's fucked them over because it's gone, or drink the ACV shot and you're going to lose fat. Because we know that's not the mechanism. That's not what it's there for. And is that then the problem that you then have
understanding behind it?
Yeah, you then have people like, let's say, saying, well, it doesn't really matter if you do this or you don't do this. And again, I agree at the end of the day, like you do need to be consuming less than you burn, but then technically, Sasha, you're on like 500, 600 calories more than you were, and your body's recomping because you can actually perform, lift, and do all the things you need to do. And it's like, this is where I think the area needs to be understood is you're maybe putting in these health promoting behaviors, but it's not at the outcome of this is going to drop fat mass. You know, like, yeah.
Coming back to what you said earlier as well about like working with the emotions and why it's so important to work with health is because 80% of your brain signals are afferent, which means it comes from the body. So that's why we have to look into the emotions as well as looking into the physiological factors as well, because if we're not sorting out what's happening on the physiological level, this is going to massively affect our mental health as well. But all we have to do, everyone knows about this now, it's the gut-brain axis. If your gut's not in a good position, your brain's not going to be in a good position, and that's going to affect your emotions. And this can be a root cause of anxiety and depression as well. And that's where I think mental health needs to go further by looking into the blood work so we can understand what's going on internally as well.
Why does the gut impact the brain so much?
it affects so much. Like it can affect your skin, obviously, it affects your lungs, it can affect the kidney, it can affect the liver. So it's affecting these organs, it's affecting every part of your body. So then of course that's going to play a toll on
Why
your brain
though?
as well.
So let's
Sorry to be annoying.
no, I love this.
Oh.
So let's think
Why?
about, what do we perceive as stress? So the vast majority of the population would see stress like your stereotypical like nail biting, or like, you know, I've got a lot of deadlines to do, like that kind of like imposed stress, like externally imposed stress, versus you've got internally imposed stress. So if you've not drank enough water, you're dehydrated, that's going to send a signal to your brain going, mate, it's a little bit parched in here and I need to drink something. And you just have that low level kind of like signal that's going to your brain telling you that. You might choose to tune into it, you might choose not to. Similarly to if you're like bloating and things like that, you've got that signal that's going up to your brain to tell you, oh, you know, we don't really feel too good, but you know, then you can bludgeon through it. Again, it depends on how grounded I think you are within yourself, to how willing or able you are to listen into these signals. So again, if you've got someone with a lot of dissociation or a lot of elevated state, you might not be able to get into that position, which is why
I was going to say, I think Sasha wants it on a deeper level, like how you've got 78% of your immune system, which is withheld in the gut. So obviously, again, that's going to affect your immune system, which is going to affect your mental health. What you've also got is the fact that over 80% of serotonin is produced in the gut. Serotonin is also known as a happy hormone.
Yeah.
80% affected in your gut straight away. So if we're not looking into that with mental health, then we're missing probably the biggest key role player.
However, we have to put into perspective with that, that's not readily absorbed by the brain. That's to help with gut motility. So if we're thinking about serotonin being produced in the gut, we're also thinking about the fact that that's then improving gut motility. We're not getting constipated. We're not then getting reabsorption
But
of
then
hormones.
that's what affects your brain because of the gut brain axis.
Exactly. But I just want to put it out there because a lot of the time people go, oh my gosh, if I can make more serotonin in the gut, I'm going to improve my serotonin in the brain. Not necessarily the direct mechanism.
No, but it's not about putting more serotonin in. It's about understanding the root cause of why it's not being produced effectively.
I agree.
Which could be?
Yeah.
So many factors we could look into, again, like low stomach acid, like we spoke about. Leaky gut is probably the most common thing that people have and don't even realize. Leaky gut can come from over time, inflammation in the gut, irritation. So those with IBS most likely are going to have it. Also, 7% of people with IBS have SIBO, which is the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. We've also got to think, do you want to explain leaky gut a little bit deeper?
I mean, leaky
in terms
gut,
of like transcellular and paracellular.
Yeah,
just on a easy.
And an easy, I like to
in 10 words.
In 10 words, but no, I can't do it.
Kidding.
No. So I mean, leaky gut again can be a bit buzzwordy. And
Alcohol, gluten, caffeine can cause leaky gut.
okay.
How many words is that? Like 7?
Yeah, you did well with that. But I think what's important to know is like if you're somebody who gets bloating, like often, let's say you wake up in the morning and anything you eat sets you off and you end up bloating, it's a very high likelihood that you've got a bit of leaky gut. So in our intestines, the cell, it's one cell thick. So between the intestinal ecosystem where you've got all your bacteria, all your good stuff, and then with your bloodstream in like your body, it's one cell. So we also have a mucosal lining as well, which protects those cells. But if you've got a lot of inflammation, if maybe we're eating things that don't sit really well with us, now it's not to say that that is the problem. The problem is addressing the leaky gut first, and then probably being in a position where you can then actually digest the food you're reacting to. But what happens is those cells, they've got usually quite tight junctions. They just start to maybe move slightly. And
Slight little gaps.
Little gaps. And if you then think about, so in our intestines, we've got bacteria, our microflora and fauna. Everyone's probably started to hear about the gut microbiome, which bacteria digests like bits of fiber, all those other things, and converts one thing into the next. And we need it to survive. But what can happen is if you've got little bits of die-off, or when I say die-off, maybe like, you know,
just even nutrients and toxins, but you've got to think of the environment toxins. Like us living in Bali right now, there's so many car exhaust fumes, which has the candem, which is a type of obviously heavy metal. If we don't have the ability to eliminate that very well, which if we've got leaky gut, that's then leaking into our bloodstream. That's also happening with foods that we eat because we've got leaky gut, right? We're not fully absorbing the nutrients.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. And then this is when, if you've got like particles that go between these like cell junctions against the bloodstream, is why people will maybe react to certain foods. But it's not then necessarily that the food itself is the problem, which a lot of people will cut out foods and then find that they then have a really small food list that they can consume. Then they start reacting to those foods. And it's like, well, what is going on? Or maybe they'll react well to that food one day and then 3 days later they'll react poorly. And it's because they need to heal and to work on regeneration, let's say, of like the gut lining,
You're
and like
basically
mucosal
losing
layer.
out, like everyone will know about prebiotics and probiotics.
Yep.
Obviously, if you start to restrict your foods, you can start to miss out on the bacterial strains that your body actually needs.
Yeah.
But there needs to be more understanding about what those bacterial strains or probiotics and prebiotics are that you need. And this is why we should never be looking into just one diet for the whole of our lives. Let's go with carnivore, for example. Could be very good to reduce inflammation, but it's lacking bifidobacterium and lactobacillus. So therefore, you're missing out on them strains, which can then cause more gut health issues. If we're looking to someone who has autoimmune, then we're going to be looking into ARP, which is the autoimmune palea. But again, we want to start always thinking about actually how can we create as much diversity in someone's gut microbiome as possible in order to give them the micronutrients and diversity they need.
Yes, exactly.
Which can only be properly done by bloods, because otherwise you're just guessing, I assume.
Yeah, you can do some stool testing and things
Yeah,
like that.
GI maps
but-
are really good, but if we just want to understand on a much deeper level, then yeah, blood work is going to tell us what's going on, whether it's obviously SIBO, parasites, candida. I think that's what's misunderstood as well. People don't understand how much blood can actually tell us. I even had a lab phone me up the other night, didn't I, and ask about putting a gut machine into their facility. And I was like, why? And they're like, because we need this, don't we, to understand what's going on with gut health. I was like, no, you can see this all through blood, and they've got a doctor working for them. But that shows obviously how the education is very different from medical school compared to interpreting it through a functional lens.
I guess it all depends on that insight. Sorry, Sasha, I'll let you jump in.
Okay.
But I think like if you're looking, yes, at the bloods, you can get a general overview in terms of the more of a pinpoint into what it is, versus the GI mapping can then give you insight into the specific bacterial strains that you actually have in your
and
gut
this
at
is
that particular time.
why a coach is so important, because we still need more understanding of the individual as well, right? You can't just treat someone as a disease.
No.
We have to treat them as actually the individual.
Yeah.
We have to get more understanding about what they've done previously, what they're currently doing, and that way we can actually work with them, and then we're going to know what's actually best for them rather than just going off just blood work alone.
Yeah.
We need to have that understanding through like a world-class health screening as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. So coming back to health at every size, because we've got another fucking
yeah.
right there.
I forgot what our topic actually was then.
So what I'm hearing is whether like your size, give me a bit of like you guys take me on that one a bit. So because obviously they're saying you can be healthy at every size. AJ, you're pretty much saying no, you can't.
What's healthy? Are we just normalizing what health is? Does that make sense? Are we normalizing being acceptant of who we are, which is a type of health? But does it diminish the fact that there's an underlying factor? No. So it's a part of health. I agree.
So
is it health overall? No.
So that you're saying like acceptance is a part of health.
Yeah, is that where we're driving at the health at all? People being all sizes health, is that what they're driving at? Is we become accepting of ourselves?
Yeah, and this is what like we've had a discussion about this. It's not that you're not lovable. It's not that you're not accepted by society if you are in a larger or a smaller body, or even in a body that like that is classified by NHS as normal. You are accepted, you are lovable, you are worthy regardless.
Yeah.
100%.
And I wish they'd gone down that route, but they're saying health at every size.
Yeah, that's the issue.
That's what's dangerous.
Yeah. If we even look at it in a perspective of somebody trying to grow muscle, let's say, okay, if you don't have a body that is operating as well as it could, you're going to have a very hard time growing muscle. And it's like, you know, if that's one of your goals, if you want to tone up, if you want to like grow a bit of a shelf, if you want to grow your booty a little bit, like if you are chronically under eating, and again, this is where a lot of the education, let's say, for example, comes on, oh, you just need to eat more calories. Yes, in a way. Yes, definitely. I agree. You need the calories to come in, but it's also the internal health, like where are your hormones at? Where is
I
your
thought you were
stress
going
at?
on a massive tangent there and going to bring biomechanics into it. I was like, let's not go down that.
No. That's
for another time.
That's for another time. That's another rabbit hole. But that's also health. Like, how well are you moving? Like, you know.
And both of those things, both of the things that you guys have helped me to do so far, so biomechanics and blood work, so they are like not the foundations, but I'm going to say it anyway, the foundations to then help me to get the things that I wanted to get. So biomechanics, you are stepping into the realms of how your body moves and optimizing that. Blood work, you're looking at what is currently stopping you, like in my case, from absorbing the protein. What's the fucking point of getting 140 grams in a day if you're just pissing it out and shitting it out, you know? So that's what we're looking at here, is building those foundations in.
Yeah.
100%.
So health at every size. Okay, so if you've got people listening to this now who are either end of the scale, let's go smaller body, larger body. What's step one for actually looking at health?
I'll jump in here. Actually, I think the first thing you need to work out is what is, I know we use the term healthy. What is the term health to you? So going back to the BMI, everybody is different. Now I understand you've got to put a range on things. I get that. So the BMI is this scale, and you look at it, and AJ, you're saying you're obese. I'm also classed as obese. But the question is, what am I doing in my life? If I like to, let's say I've got kids and I want to be able to pick up the kids and take them to the park and play with them, I may need that extra bit of body fat. I may need that extra bit of weight. So to me, that's healthy, or that's health. So when you look at it like that, is, I would say, first of all, is work out what your health is. Is it to be able to move well? Is it to be able to play football with your kids? Is it to be able to walk up and down the stairs? Absolutely fine. Work that out first and aim for that. Then work out how you're going to get there and start implementing that.
So I 100% agree with that on a psychological point of view, because you need to be able to be connected with yourself to understand what your health is. That's the first step. But when it comes from just a more generalized point of view, blood work, because that does not lie. That tells you about your health.
But so you've said before, like, so what is health then? What is your definition of health?
My definition of health currently, and this is why I say with the psychological practice, because it's always going to change to what is sitting with you at that time. But right now, what I'd look at, because obviously it is very much towards blood work for me, it's getting your markers into optimal as much as you can, because there's still going to be some cases where obviously every marker may not be an optimal, but if we can get more markers towards optimal, then you're going to be functioning a hell of a lot better.
So you're telling me, if you have someone that you work with for a year who was not optimal, suboptimal prior to working with you, they work with you over a year, they then have optimal in all areas of their bloods, you're saying that they are then healthy?
They're healthier, because you can speak to any of them clients and you ask if they feel better about themselves now compared to where they did when they didn't have as many markers in optimal, then they'll say yes. Don't get me wrong, there's loads of different other factors, but I'm saying from just a blood work perspective, like keeping it general.
But I want it to be so the reason why I asked that question is because I see health as holistic. I see health as financial, social, emotional.
Multifactorial approach.
So what is health?
Exactly. And this is where it is so subjective. And that's also okay.
I don't think it should be, though. I think that's a cop-out.
Okay to be subjective in the sense of not to, I think, okay, let me rephrase. I think it's okay that it's different. So for example, let's say, okay, health is okay, and it's okay to sit by and just, put your feet up and go, oh, it's okay, I'm at this size because then I'm healthy. I don't agree with that. I think if you're striving for perfect 10s across the board with every marker and optimal with your blood work, but you're struggling financially because you can't afford the supplementation to be able to keep you there, that's not healthy, and that's not okay. So it's kind of then thinking again, like having a bit more body fat, does that then afford you the capacity or the flexibility to eat out more with friends and family and to enjoy it and be socially connected?
If you start doing them things and you start looking on a fundamental point of view, like you actually implement them natural solutions, the free interventions, would your blood markers improve?
Most likely.
Comes back to blood work showing you about your health, right?
Okay, so you don't necessarily need to then spend a load of money on supplements post blood work.
Definitely not, and this is why you have to understand where the client is at. So on a financial level, but also just in terms of their lifestyle. Like, people might not even realize, I'm going to throw this out, and it's going to, not to like make anyone worry, but you do research on frying pans. Let's go with like Tefl, right? What does that then release?
Metal. No?
Toxins.
BPA.
Okay.
BPA.
Toxins is a very buzzword. Let's be a bit more specific.
C8. No, but everyone will understand that, and that's what we have to.
Oh, I was listening to a podcast the other day about somebody getting the white coating off of their tongue because that's toxins, and I'm just sat there going like, my God, you can literally call everything toxins.
That's candida.
Yeah, it's candida.
If you've got coating on your tongue, it could be potentially small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but it's most likely going to be candida.
No, but what I'm saying is call a spade a spade.
I just have toxins as toxins. So yeah, it releases C8, which is then obviously going to cause issues with the body. So
just give a quick, short, brief overview of what you class as markers? Just because I believe a lot of people, if I was thinking from the outside now, I wouldn't know what a marker is.
Yeah, so like as in like red blood cell count, white blood cell count, your liver function, your kidney function, the inflammation markers, the protein markers, the hormone markers, the immunology markers.
So
You've also got obviously then your nutrient markers as well. You've got iron panel. Like this is why, again,
it's
obviously
numerical
I'm going to
count.
plug it. The Superhuman Health Protocol is going to be the best because we actually do a comprehensive test. Like we actually have our own bespoke test. Whereas if you go to the NHS and you start to list some symptoms, what they do is, let's say with Cole goes in because he's feeling like he's low on sex drive. If he starts to push for it, he might get a hormone test to obviously measure his testosterone levels. Whereas if Sasha goes in and she says, oh, I've been getting pain around my liver, then obviously they're going to do just a liver test. So this is where actually we've got to realize what's causing this though. If there are liver issues, could it be down to another factor? Most likely, yes. This is where it could be to do with gut health. When we're looking to testosterone levels, what is affecting that? There's always going to be a root cause, which is why we can never look into any markers in isolation. We need to get the full insight to actually get the story and actually be able to correlate and see the patterns that are going on with someone.
No, I agree with that. And I agree with looking at the interplay of systems, because this is the thing. It's like, again, a massive cop out for females. And I also, so I have a duality with this, in that I do believe that anybody should be able to access the appropriate contraception that feels right for them at the time. And there's zero judgment and shame on this. Okay. But when you go to the GP with PMS or with acne or with something else that's maybe kind of like giving you a bit of an issue, maybe it's irregular periods, and the solution is to go on the pill, I think that that is a massive neglect. And it's like, I've got a couple of clients recently, I mean, obviously yourself included, with coming off of hormonal contraceptive, but who've been on the pill for years and years and years, have come off and have experienced post-pill PCOS, where we've had like an amazing increase in acne, cystic acne, hair loss, changes to skin texture, and all these sorts of things. So when we're looking at it from that perspective, we could be like, oh, well, you know, I was fine being on it. And this is not to scaremonger anybody. Please do your own research in terms of whether it's the right thing or not for you. But we needed to look deeper into how their liver was coping with like eliminating excess hormones. So that's one of the primary things that the liver does, is it takes old estrogen, for example, and gets rid of it.
Just think of it as the detox organ.
Yeah. So it's like, and we want to make sure we're not constipated, because if we're constipated, then we just keep reabsorbing that old estrogen, and it's like, whoa, PMS city. But looking at all of those aspects that we needed to support them on that slightly deeper level to be able to alleviate cystic acne, get hair growth coming back. And I've kind of gone on a bit of a tangent here, but it's kind of like, you know, when you just brush off like a problem as, like you said, you go to the GP and it's like, oh, it's a woman's problem. There's ways that you can help yourself.
I want to come back to the free cost-effective things we can do as well, in terms of just look into your environment. I'd say that's probably the best place where everyone start to improve their health. And we can look at this from different factors. I'll just give like the 3 different examples. Like I said, obviously with the Tefal pan, let's say that could be one. Candles, because of the fragrances, it's synthetic, it's not natural, so that could be another. We could go with artificial light. Like right now we have these blue lights above us. Should we really be doing that when we've got natural light outside? This can still then obviously start to cause issues. This is why people can start to get like headaches when they're looking at their laptops all the time, because it's straining our eyes.
What saucepan should we use?
So ceramic or stainless steel.
Okay.
Cast iron.
And just going back to the
cast irons are horrible though. If anyone gets a cast iron, they'll be like, damn you.
You can learn to season it.
Going back to like NHS, because obviously I work with a lot of women, and I've recently spoken to one who she's been getting a few symptoms like restless leg, clammy hands, like exhausted. And so she went and she had a couple of blood tests done, and they basically said, so with your restless leg, you need to increase your caffeine. You need to make sure that that's going up, which is obviously going to make it worse. And the advice that they gave was absolutely horrendous. Her vitamin D was 48, and they said you're pretty much near the optimal, which is 50. But what is the actual range?
175 to 225.
175 to 225.
Whereas, yeah, the conventional range go 50 to 150. So they're still not touching on what really is optimal.
It's absolutely mad. And this is one thing that, you know, some women listening to this podcast will be like, you know what, I'm good. I feel okay. I'm happy to carry on as I am. But a lot of the women that I work with.
I've just got the link, by the way. So I know when you brought it up the other day, sorry, I just have to say this. So yeah. So basically, obviously, when you were saying this straight away, I was like, that's a magnesium deficiency, right? I said probably going to be iron deficiency as well. So you need to get them checked. In terms of caffeine, it increases your central nervous system, which is going to cause more of an effect on the restless leg syndrome. Now, you just mentioned her vitamin D being like, okay, now what can we correlate to one of the minerals that helps with the uptake of vitamin D? Magnesium. Straight away, improve her magnesium levels. She's going to help with her restless leg syndrome. What is she also going to do? She's going to help with the uptake of vitamin D. So that's going to shoot up as well.
And our energy.
Did anyone mention that?
No, of course not. They've just said they're going to do more blood tests.
Yeah.
And to increase her caffeine.
Yeah.
So there's one more topic that's nothing to do with health at every size, but we've obviously had a discussion about it. This one. Can you guess?
I'm thinking from last night.
No, not last night. Last night.
No.
Can you guess? It's not last night.
We've had a topic on it.
We've had a discussion about it.
There's many. So
Yeah, we
anybody-
talk health all day, every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Anybody listening, there's a few conversations. So if anybody wants to, like, you know, have more of an insight into the ramblings, let us know. But yeah, no.
Yeah, hit us with
What's
it.
that around mystery?
Veganism.
Oh, okay. What are you going to say something to do with the vagina then when you
Vaginism.
Oh, wow, we going deep. We going deep.
I think we should do a female health podcast in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that'd be wicked.
And go all into menstrual cycles, vaginal mucus, and all of that wonderful stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, give that one a miss.
Nah, come on.
She's like, are you a vagina lover, Carl?
So veganism, it's obviously been another movement that's been going on over the last few
Mm.
years, for ethical reasons mostly.
Mhm.
But obviously a lot of people are selling it because it will improve your health.
Can we just start on the ethical reason? Do you want to go into that of agriculture versus regenerative?
You just
Farm
framed that
agriculture
like
versus regenerative
this is what I
agriculture.
want. So yeah, I agree with the ethics in the sense that we want to make sure that where we are sourcing our food is sustainable. They've got good ethics and codes of practice. No, nobody wants to get meat from a barn full of cows that are literally living one stacked on top of the other. And that's not the,
And that's what gets shown on mainstream, right?
And
That's the
that's-
farming agriculture.
yeah.
But we
So-
need to understand the difference of
When-
what regenerative agriculture is.
Yeah, so regenerative agriculture is about supporting ecosystems and supporting the sequestering of nitrogen back into the soil so that we're able to then create nutrient diverse plants, for example. So if we don't have the sequestering of nitrogen back into the soil, we don't have that ecosystem that actually produces nutrient rich anything. So when we're looking at supporting like farms and farmers as well, it's thinking, can we, and again, this is where the problem comes in a lot of the time with economy and finances, is where possible, can you support locally produced grass-fed meats, for example, or, you know, hens that have got a wild capacity to like range and free roam, and then like, you know, getting eggs from there because they tend to be more nutrient diverse. Also looking at things, and this is going to maybe be like a, what, really? Organ meats as well. Like it's a massive one. And this sounds so Liver King, and I get it, but utilizing other aspects or other elements of an animal that's not just your stereotypical like steak or chicken breast also helps with minimizing waste.
A cool fact as well for anyone who is into organs, like that organ holds the nutrients that your organ needs as well. So those that are struggling with liver health,
That's
eat
why I
more
need liver.
liver
Mm.
will
But
help.
hang on a minute, right? So ethics, these people don't want to eat animals.
Mhm.
They don't give a fuck whether it's been organically sourced or whatever.
Mhm.
Like if we think about it, that's what I meant when I said ethics.
Mm.
You know, a lot of vegans are like, leave the animals alone.
Yep.
So that's the root when I say ethics.
So
Yeah,
this,
but why are they saying leave the animal alone? It's because they're seeing what's on mainstream. They're seeing these cows who are all caught in these cages, right? They're not understanding that actually there's cows out there who are free to roam and who are fully enjoying life and obviously getting their food from nutrient dense soil.
But then they're saying, so then don't kill it.
so this is then when, so
That's what they're saying.
no, absolutely. So if
I
we
know what you're saying,
take
but they
this-
don't think like,
if we
I'm
take
gonna
this
think
into a
about a word there.
standpoint, okay, so
Yeah.
as an example, if we think about stomach acid, we've touched upon this a couple of times. So if we have low stomach acid, we tend to not be able to sanitize our gastrointestinal tract as well as we otherwise could do. If we have a downturn in meat consumption, now people will sometimes get very bloated when they eat meat, and it's because they've potentially got lower stomach acid. What happens when we're elevated in fight or flight all the time is we have a downturn in, or we have an upturn of sympathetic, downturn of parasympathetic. So we divert blood away from our gastrointestinal system, we produce less stomach acid, which then means we're not really in a state to be able to eat and consume and to digest our food appropriately. So a lot of the time when people maybe consume meats, let's say, and they feel bloated, they feel lethargic, they don't feel too good, it's not necessarily the meat that's the problem, it's potentially the state they're in when they're looking to eat, consume, and try to assimilate nutrients. So often then people will maybe cut out meat for a couple of weeks, couple of months, and they'll feel great because they've got also, our bodies are fantastic in that they do tend to store a lot of the things that we need. But once we've depleted those stores, we can't store everything, by the way, guys, don't think that we can. Once we've depleted those stores, that's when we start to notice deficiencies and the lack of available nutrients starting to creep in. Now, if you're just looking at it from the perspective of, oh, but I can get enough protein in with a vegan diet, okay, sure, you probably can. But I'm not talking about protein as protein. It's more like, right, your vitamin B nutrients, like what are the vitamins and minerals that you can actually get in from that nutritional approach?
How bioavailable is it?
And how bioavailable is it, which is a big thing.
Okay, so we are stuck on the ethical debate, so we'll leave that onto the side for now. What are your...
I was going to say with the ethical one, though, we've just got to think about how long that they've been around and how long obviously they've served humanity for as well.
Okay, so what I'm looking at now is what are the benefits of veganism?
So no, short term. I think short term.
Short term, there's been studies that it can help for 4 weeks.
Precisely.
4 weeks.
Okay,
Yeah, but that's
It can
short-term
also help
benefits.
if someone's going on a plant medicine journey as well. Very useful to use. And like I said earlier with the carnivore diet, again, everything in moderation at the right time for that individual is going to be very important. But we have to understand someone's health and where it's at. If someone's having poor functioning of their liver, why is that? Can we then obviously understand the client? Have they got a vegetarian diet or are they vegan? If they are, which most likely we can see from blood work, whether they're going to be without even actually asking the client, is due to them not getting the minerals in, the vitamins that are needed to help the liver function.
okay, so we know that there are some benefits if you go down the vegan route for a short amount of time for a reason. Yeah.
Yep.
What are the costs, the negatives of being vegan?
so a lot of the time, because we can't actually take in, let's say, bioavailable B
But
vitamins
for
from
missing out on a good steak, go on.
no, right,
Mm.
let's be
Last night's was pretty tasty.
It'll be lab grown soon. Just in America,
oh,
hasn't it?
Yeah,
So,
it's not-
gosh, lab.
I think let's do this
Yeah, let's
direct.
they're missing
Bam,
out.
bam, 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 bam. What are
Yeah.
the negatives?
So for a lot of the time, we tend to find that more vegans are anemic than non-vegans. And reason for that as well is bioavailability of iron and ferritin in food sources.
Which
So-
is also linked with vitamin Bs. And where do you get bioavailable vitamin Bs from? Animal protein.
Okay, yes. And so that in itself can then cause problems with stamina, with energy, the capacity to transport blood, oxygen around the blood system appropriately. It's not that you're not going to be able to do it, but it is a drawback.
And then coming back to your low stomach acid point earlier, what is the mineral needed with low stomach acid?
But zinc.
Zinc. And where do you get zinc from?
Carry on.
Animal meat.
Okay.
Like you get a higher, more bioavailable amount.
So they are, when you are on a long-term vegan diet, you are malnourished because the stuff that you get from the nutrients that you get from meat are not in your diet. Can you supplement those?
You could supplement those, but then the catch is that a lot of people will not supplement long-term enough to be able to actually get what they need from that.
It then becomes like taking almost any drug, doesn't it? Let's say like with males on TRT, then got to take X, Y, and Z to help them rebalance the hormones. Should we be looking at that factor, or can actually we be looking at it from a natural point of view of what we can just do for our nutrition?
But this is then the point, is if you've got somebody who ethically and categorically will not eat meat, then you do have to do your due diligence
Yeah, you have to supplement.
to supplement
Yep.
and to make sure that your nutrition is diverse and not to just go
But is that
for
an
the
argument in itself?
processed. plant-based alternatives.
Is that an
you then
argument in
feed.
itself?
Right.
If you have to supplement left, right, and center just to support your own body functioning when you can just get it through nutrition?
But then this comes down to like free interventions and things like that, because again, the argument then could be said, like, because we've also mentioned supplementation a few times in this discussion already, that then is, you know, your optimum health, you know, you still have to supplement regardless. Because
Okay.
a lot of soils are depleted now as well.
Yeah, so the soil's depleted, but what's also happening to the vegetables? What are they getting sprayed on them? Glyphosates, yeah,
Oh,
pesticides.
pesticides.
which
I
is
was
a
going to
type
say
of pesticide.
peptides.
No, pesticides, yeah.
That's the one.
And then what is this causing?
Well, that causes then more problems in
Yeah,
terms of,
Because it's a toxin in your body again. So I want to use that word because think about it, right? People who spray these pesticides,
Yeah.
they're wearing a whole hazard suit. They're wearing a mask. They're spraying on these vegetables, which you're then eating. How does that make sense?
And then this then comes down to, I suppose, the question of as well, the volume of food that is produced, the requirement to meet supply, obviously demand. If we look at regenerative agriculture, we could look at a farm having a whole ecosystem of producing veg, animal-based products and things like that, but one knocks
You've
onto
got
the
the
other,
ducks
the
that eat
other.
the snails.
Like, I don't know if anybody's seen, is it Big Little Farm or something like
Big
that?
Little Farm.
Big Little
Absolutely
Farm.
amazing documentary on Amazon, which will teach everyone so much about regenerative agriculture.
And it's fantastic. It takes them a shit ton of time to actually get it set up appropriately, because at each stage, it is that idea of you've got your apex predator, and then
Yeah,
everything kind
it
of comes
shows
down
you the
from that point.
beauty of life, of animals, the circle,
Mm.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's an incredible
Is there
documentary.
also an argument with when you're eating a, let's just call it a standard diet, you're getting a piece of everything, it's quite diverse.
Mm.
If you were then to go to veganism or even vegetarian, chances are then you're more focusing and you're going to have a spike in certain areas. When I say
Mm.
that, great, you're going to be eating more veg, potentially,
You say
more
that.
fruit.
They actually, a lot of the time people don't.
Really?
Fruit, yeah. I found it really hard, especially with a lot of CC clients who are veggies and vegan.
Mm.
You would assume that they would, sorry to butt in, but you would assume that they would massively ramp up their veg. Not always the case.
That's what I would have thought. So I would have said that's a good side, but then the bad side of that is what comes with veg is potentially a lot more fiber. All of a sudden,
I was
your
gonna
fiber
say-
spiked from say 30 grams a day to 80 grams a day.
Mm.
Then it's going to throw you out even more
Yeah,
of your
that-
whole bodily
So
function.
this is what I go along with probiotics. People just take like a blend of probiotics. How do they know what probiotic they need?
Half the time they don't even get to your intestine.
Exactly.
Like-
Transient.
A probiotic says on the thing, says 5 billion probiotics.
Mm.
Yeah.
5 billion. And you're like, oh, the more the better, surely. But what's really working with your body? You don't
Exactly.
know.
What is it that your body needs? What state is it in? And this is again what we see through functional blood work. If someone's got small intestinal bacterial growth, giving them more fiber may be the worst thing for them. And that's why someone might have gone vegan or vegetarian and still getting bloated because they're not responding well to the fiber.
A thing that you guys said to me the other day that was the reason I brought up veganism today was because of the fact to do with children who are born, like the brain development.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
veganism?
Yeah.
Can you say that better than I just did?
So there's now studies coming out where we're noticing a difference in brain development of young children born from vegetarian or vegan parents, and it's just a trend that is different. And it's quite staggering to see the difference between having a more omnivorous based nutrition approach. Now, this is where I'm saying,
I know as well, because we were going down the route of how your health can affect obviously your baby's health, but also your granddaughter or
you know, it's
grandson's health as
generational
well.
health.
So we've got to think about generational health as well. Your health is going to affect
This is it.
others.
And this is where, again, it's sitting with it and kind of like being aware of the information. It doesn't then make somebody a bad person. And this is where I think a lot of the discussions always end up coming back to like how somebody feels, or then again, it's a very deep rooted moral cause. And it's sitting with information and going, well, this is the stats that are coming out now.
If we're looking at it from just a nutrient point of view though, right? If someone's gone vegan, are they getting enough lactobacillus? Are they getting enough lactoferrin? Are they getting enough bifidobacterium? And obviously, let's go with breastfeeding. If they've not got them nutrients inside their body, they can't then pass that on to their child, which then, unfortunately, is going to affect that child's development.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And that's what you said about the other day was the brain development
mhm,
of the baby.
mhm.
Interesting. So what do we want to finish up on? Anyone got any final points?
I think, sorry, just add on that. I think the overall point of that is if you want to do go vegan, if you want to go vegetarian, by all means go with it. Just be aware that's quite a difference to what your body's used to. So just keep on top of markers.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you know what I say?
Let your doctor know, ask the question, go and get those tests that are required. If you want to take the next step, reach out to Superhuman, these guys, whatever it might be, but just be aware it's quite a sharp thing to do. You should care about your health in general, of course, but if you're going to take that sharp step to veganism or vegetarian or pescatarian or whatever it might be, just think ahead.
Yeah, if you've got any questions or queries, honestly, like, get your blood work done, and that's going to give you such an insight. Again, unfortunately, are they going to be able to read it at the doctors? Most
I would
likely
say don't waste your fucking time with doctors.
Yeah, you may as well just come to us.
Yeah.
And I say it to a lot of, like, even my friends who have been vegan and vegetarian, and I'm like, look, I'm not going to argue with you. Let's just get your blood work and see where it's at. If I could see straight away from your blood work that you're vegan or vegetarian, then that's telling us a lot, right?
You went through a state of being.
Yeah, I went vegan, I went vegetarian, and it led to a lot of gut health issues. I felt probably my fittest, I probably felt my strongest. At the time, I probably thought I looked my best, but why was that? Was I just telling myself that? Because the blood work doesn't lie, right? We do have to take in obviously how you're feeling at the time, 100%, but that also then affects your body. So you'd think actually from an emotional standpoint, if I'm feeling this great, surely that should be manifested into the rest of my body, and it still wasn't. I was just unfortunately heading down a rapid decline of my own health, and it could have come to one of these stages where all of a sudden I had a sudden health condition.
Yeah,
this is what I don't agree with. Sudden. Get your blood work done, actually get it interpreted correctly, and then we can start to prevent the chances of any of these sudden conditions.
If you look at mine, for example, I'm on the way to low thyroid, underactive thyroid. I'm on the way to probably something to do with my liver. What else is it?
Did I read your bloods first and then know your genes, or was it your genes and then I knew what's going to come up with your blood work? Yeah.
Genes first and then blood work. But yeah, so there's many things that you guys, and bearing in mind for everyone listening, like I got them read by someone who went from the conventional realms, and they were like, everything's fine, your vitamin D is amazing, this is amazing. The only thing was that iron ferritin, was it, or something?
Your ferritin levels.
That was the only one that was out, and he was like, oh, it will be fine. Then you guys read it and you were like, you can see the things that is not being said, the knock-on effect, the causes, this means that and this means that. And that's what's been so kind of amazing to work with you guys, is you actually help me to see things that could happen in the future.
If any marker is out in the conventional ranges, that straight away is an alert, because there's going to be something else going on in the body, like ferritin being jacked, let's say, being above conventional ranges especially, there's going to be a lot of inflammation in the body. Inflammation doesn't just occur. We need to understand what else is going on in the body that's causing this.
No, and like this is where, again, you know, when we're saying, okay, everything's fine, like as soon as we started working with you, Sasha, like one of the first things that I noticed, because I was like looking on Sasha's Instagram stories, because, you know, I'm like just keeping up with the fans, but it's like I was like, your eyes are just so much more clear. And it was like just started to notice as well, like around your chin, because again, that was one of your areas where you were like, oh, I get like loads of acne and everything kind of like flares up all the time. And it's the same with like the girls that I coach as well. It's like, you know, they'll go, okay, maybe I still have a bit
on that note,
flares up,
going deeper, but acne is linked to zinc levels, which links to low stomach acid. We helped Sasha with low stomach acid. There we go. Acne starts to decrease.
Yeah.
Carry on.
But yeah, no, it's kind of like thinking, okay, well, it's not necessarily, it's not going to be a quick fix, and it's never like, okay, in 3 months you're never going to have like acne problems again. It's definitely something that is like a longer term investment into your health. But like, you know, from my perspective, I know everybody when they're viewing themselves goes, oh, everything's still the way it was, and maybe I'm not seeing as much change as I would like, etc. But from like my perspective looking at you, like I see far fewer like flare-ups, which is fantastic, because it's not been that long really. It's been,
but also your health is with you for the rest of your life.
Precisely.
It's either going to enable you or disable you.
Yes.
And this, sorry, is that irritating you? Sorry, I almost started it straight again though. And this is what I think people who are listening need to consider, is what's the alternative? You know, yes, okay, you don't absolutely need to get your blood work done. Would I recommend it? 100%. And I know you would too. And obviously no point even asking you to, it's 100% would, but it's, what is the alternative? You know, you're going to carry on living a life where you are just going based upon NHS, which don't have the time to see you. What did you say that stat about the?
So on average, UK doctors only spend 9.4 minutes with a patient. 9.4 minutes. How can you really find out
I
about
will
what's
be-
going on within
I will be
9.4
devil's
minutes?
advocate in that Western medicine has saved a lot of lives,
100%.
and it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, we
So
know that.
we're not bashing the fact that we have an NHS,
No.
not at all.
Disclaimer over here.
100%. I have to put it in because it's like I still love the fact that we have an
And
NHS,
everything we're saying is for educational purposes.
not to treat like a slander.
Right, guys. Well, thank you so much. So just to wrap up then, health at every size.
Not
No,
really, no.
okay. There's many different angles that we didn't even touch on as well.
I think they can be to a degree, and health is very subjective.
Awesome. Thank you.
What is your take, Sasha?
My take is I don't even think size can be directly, there are so many other factors of health. Why are they just honing in on size?
Let's even
That's
take, I was
my-
going to say, take
yeah.
away the size bit.
Yeah.
Can we just look at health?
This is exactly the post that took me
Simple.
about 4 days to draft that I still haven't posted yet was that.
Yeah.
You know, why are they just saying about size? Remove
Yeah.
that, then what?
They're almost creating stigma from that.
Mhm.
A reason to be triggered in today's cancel culture. Anyway, with that in mind, thank you so much for listening. Have an incredible day, guys. Thank you. And we'll be back soon.